We're looking at our second game of the year, rolling into week 1, Chiefs and Chargers. We're going to look at this matchup, see how this game script could roll, and look at all different scenarios to see what we want to do with our fantasy players, if we want to start them, bitch them, or whatever. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're looking at every single matchup this year, every single game to help you set your lineups, player rankings to help you set your lineups, battle videos to help you set your lineups. We're looking at the waiver wire every day. We're helping you with trades and everything else. Click that button. Stop missing out. But this is a fun matchup today. One thing is Vegas does not know what to do with it. And I know how I can tell is by the over-under. We're at 46.5. So it's kind of like middle of the road compared to the other over-unders. And then when you look at the Chiefs and Chargers, you look at this as a game where it could be very slow considering the Chiefs' defense, considering the Chargers want to run the football. And then on top of that, you look at the firepower both teams has. Vegas is staying right down the middle with a 46.5 over-under. That makes this game very hard to predict. But yet, there's some factors here that you can really look at to really nail things down. Their last 3 games here, 13-12 in scoring, 17-10, and 19-17, Chiefs and Chargers. So not high scoring, nobody hitting the 20s. Gritty games, that's what we saw in the last 3 matchups. Pass attempts per game in the last 3, 32 for the Chiefs. You're looking at pass attempts for the Chargers, 34.67. Rushing yards, not good for the Chargers, 89 per game in those last 3, 106 for the Chiefs. This is going to be a slugfest. The Chiefs usually throw a little bit more, almost 300 passing yards. Same with the Chargers, 288. This is going to be a game where if it is high scoring, something's broke. When it comes to the defensive side of the ball, they're giving up big plays, a couple plays run down. Or it's a slugfest. Chiefs defense coming in strong, slowing things down. A really tough defense there. Chargers trying to run the ball. And the Chargers got to get creative with it. Chiefs, slower paced offense, but methodical, very efficient. Chargers defense, no slouch. This could be a tough one to call, but we're looking at these 2 quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes last year, a lot of people were complaining about him in fantasy football. The thing about him, though, he does not give you hardly ever any down weeks, less than 10 fantasy points. So he's safe to throw in there. I feel very good. Against the Chargers last year, you got 16. And then on top of that, you got 15. I think the odds of hitting that upside might be limited. Like getting that 30-point game, 40-point game, 25-plus out of him in this matchup. Because I think the clock's going to be ran a good bit. Like the Chargers are going to want to run the football with Omarion Hampton and Najee. And then the Chiefs' defense is going to make it tough for that. It's going to be a gritty game. And I see him being okay. Getting you a good 15 spot or so. Give a little, take a little. You know what I'm saying. When I look at Herbert and look at what he did last year against the Chiefs, he gave you a 13 and 15 spot. This will probably not be one of his best games of the season, fantasy scoring wise. I think they're both okay to start. If you're looking for top tier scoring, you may look at other directions and other matchups. But they're okay to get you by, especially if you're going just one quarterback right now and you don't have a quarterback on your bench. I would not free up a roster spot if I was worried about this. I would not get too cute at quarterback. I think no matter what, throughout the season, between both quarterbacks last year, you only got one game under 10 fantasy points per RotoViz here. That was week 13 against the Falcons. That was Herbert with 9.4. Outside of that, both quarterbacks together, 10 points or more every single week. A lot of people were complaining about Patrick Mahomes last year. Averaged 20 points per game. Solid QB2 with some QB1 weeks. Never busting on you. You got to look at the good. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. And now you're looking at Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris. Omarion Hampton will be the starter. That's what has been documented. But you're looking at this matchup. Dobbins last year scored 9.2 on the Chiefs. Edwards, 9.6. The Chiefs kill running backs. The best games and performances. Javonte Williams, 10.8. Jalen Warren, 16.2. Jerome Ford, 18.4. Chuba Hubbard, 13. Rashad White, 12.5. Alvin Kamara, 12.6. Bijan Robinson, 13.2. Justice Hill, 11.5. So nobody's hitting 20. Nobody hit 20 on them in PPR last year. Nobody did that. So I would not expect that out of Omarion Hampton. I'd say there's a chance we're in single digits. I say there's a chance we get around 10-ish. I believe you can start him for the touches, but I would not be expecting him to go to that 20-point range. I think 15 may even be a stretch for that when you're looking at what they did last year. He needs to score touchdowns. If we can get into the end zone, then we can really help that fantasy production. That's what you're rooting for. He's not going to be getting you top-end fantasy production, exceeding expectations, by grinding it out yard after yard, touch after touch. He would have to roll in the end zone twice. If he gets in the end zone twice, which is something that could happen because this is a game that could break. It could break. When I mean break is the defense folds on a couple plays, ball starts rolling, and next thing you know, the other team has to play catch up. It could break. Game scripts could break. If the game script breaks to that point, Chargers start moving the football a couple series. They get in the red zone. He punches it in twice. There you go. There's, 12 on the punch in plus the yards. You're good to go for the week. That's what we're looking at here. There's potential for that. There's also potential for the downside. Najee Harris, you're just watching the touches. You're only starting him if you're in a super deep league. If you're already hurting that bad, which there's not that many injuries right now, so you shouldn't be. You're watching from afar from Najee Harris. I would not expect much. Maybe a touchdown that could probably help you in fantasy, but you're not expecting that. You're looking at the wide receivers here for the Chargers. McConkey's in a tough matchup this week. The Chiefs are good against wide receivers on the year. They're league average. They had a bad run the last 5-6 weeks of the season. They will bend a little bit more. They're more pass funnel. There's more passing attempts on them due to how strong they are against the run. So there's a chance that one of these wide receivers emerge. Typically, when you look at this and you start looking at the list here, you're seeing a lot of wide receiver 2s and 3s here being the top scorer last year in a lot of games. That could happen. So I would not be surprised if Keenan Allen hits or Quentin Johnston hits. Keandre Lambert-Smith, a couple big plays. Maybe they have Trey Harris in there a little bit. I would not be surprised. Ladd's still startable. I got him in my rankings, but I'm lower than consensus on him. Where Fantasy Pros had him jacked up, I'm down a fair amount of spots, but he's still in the startable range. But I would not be surprised if he gets you 10 to 12. I would not be surprised if Keenan Allen just comes out of nowhere, has a good game, because they're locking down the top wide receivers. Quentin Johnston's probably going to have a hard time in this matchup because he'll be on the outside, try to work on the outside. They do a good job locking him up, unless he sneaks by like he did in Week 14. But odds are they're going to have to go to the ancillary wide receivers. I'd also be looking at the tight ends here. They might sneak away with some targets. The Chiefs are worse than league average against the tight end, 15 points per game versus league average of 12.3 per game. You're looking at Will Dissly. You're also looking at Conklin. I'm pulling up Conklin as well for this matchup. So if you're playing daily fantasy football and you're trying to get sneaky, contrarian, and the reason why is teams got to get creative against these tough defenses. So maybe the tight end 2, double tight end sets, he gets that target in the red zone. Maybe that happens. Maybe a couple extra targets. Maybe that's how they are able to move the football. They wheel that out a couple times every other series or something like that. He gets a target. Next thing you know, he's got 3 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. That's a tight end 1 week. That sounds pathetic, but that's a tight end 1 week in this economy. Will Dissly could be getting some targets in this matchup. What he did against the Chiefs last year has not been great. They do not target the tight end that often. They like to push it downfield to the wide receivers. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And Will Dissly scored 4.4 last year. And then Smart last year for the Chargers, 8.4. But against tough defenses, you got to find a way to move the ball. It could be going to the tight ends, the wide receiver 3, 4, Keenan Allen, somebody else in this offense. McConkey should be doing all right. You're looking at the running backs here. Pacheco should be starting off for the Chiefs. He's got that size-adjusted athleticism, that speed. He was banged up last year, as you saw. had a ramp-up moment, but never got off the runway. We're watching what he's doing this year. He could come out very strong and be an RB1. This is a tough matchup. Chargers are good against the run, allowing 19.6 PPR fantasy points per game to running backs, 12% less than league average. Kareem Hunt scored 10.5 last year. Pacheco scored 8.1. They did not allow any 20-point games to running backs. Wait, just one, Bijan Robinson. Outside of that, you can get a 10, 12, 15-pointer out of them. They'll bend but not break, so maybe they'll bend to Pacheco. Hunt could be sneaky if he catches a touchdown, maybe catches a few balls. Brashard Smith, we're watching him. It's going to be very hard to start him. You might get creative in large tournaments for daily fantasy football. I'm talking all tournaments here. You're really watching him from afar for Dynasty on your roster, but you're watching him. I'm watching the routes. I'm watching the snaps. I will have those logged in my waiver wire videos of what he's doing, and if he's running more than 10 routes, 15 routes, I'm sounding an alarm with you. You need video on Brashard Smith, especially with Rashee Rice being out. He could be getting more opportunities than realized. With Rice out, he might be utilized more as a wide receiver. They roll out Pacheco. They have him in motion. They put him in the slot. They have him run out of the backfield to the flat. They get creative with them. He's running with the ones. I'll be watching Brashard Smith. Hard to start in your 12-team league with 16 rounds. Very hard to start right now, but you need to be watching Brashard Smith. You're looking at the wide receivers here with the Chiefs. So we're expecting Xavier Worthy to get targets in this matchup. He came on strong at the end of last season. At Chiefs against the Chargers, Worthy scored 16.3. Hopkins scored 13.2 in those two matchups. And teams throw on the Chargers, but they're still better than league average with 32.7 points per game allowed to wide receivers versus the league average is 33.4. If you're looking at this, the ball could be spread around. Patrick Mahomes doesn't care. They don't run a ton of plays. They're not the fastest team, but they're one of the most efficient teams in football when it comes to just moving the chains, keeping things going. Xavier Worthy has upside this week. He does have the potential to get you a lot of down games, but the splash play potential is always going to be there. Plus, Rashee Rice is out. I don't see anybody really benching him. I see start-sit decisions, but I don't see anybody really benching him, saying he's a must-sit. This isn't like the most optimal matchup, but it's also a matchup that could break. Hollywood Brown could sneak in targets, could sneak in production. If they're blanketing Xavier Worthy, they're recognizing that speed, and he can just funnel Marquise Hollywood Brown a few extra targets in this game. He's still good. He's got a rapport with Patrick Mahomes. He was hurt last year. A wide receiver to pay attention to is Tyquan Thornton. If I'm in a deeper league, or from watching the waiver wire next week, Tyquan Thornton could reel in a couple big catches. Jalen Royals is out. Thornton looked good in preseason. He's got speed. He could be that guy that splashes on a couple plays, gets you 15 fantasy points, and a few weeks later you get nothing, then he splashes again type of deal. But you're watching Thornton. He could be a guy that emerges tonight, and I would not pick him up in a 12-team league right now. I would look at him as a creative play for daily fantasy football because he's going to be cheap. He's probably around a $3,600 salary or something like that. Then you can cram in your high-priced players depending on what slates you're playing. But he's going to be a cheap player. He could explode with a big play here and there. You're looking at Juju. He always has like a game or two every year. Considering Rashee Rice is out, they could get creative with him. I'm not expecting it. Do not pick him up. Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, those are the two fantasy football assets you're looking at. Watch Thornton, and there's Travis Kelce. I look for him to get 25% of the targets. Rock good with that. A lot of people down on Travis Kelce, but comparably week to week, game to game, very safe tight end. Multiple tight end 1 weeks last year. 823 yards, 3 touchdowns. The touchdowns could ramp up. Touchdowns are fluky year to year. If he rocked 6 to 10 touchdowns last year, a lot of people would be really high on Travis Kelce. He'd be going a lot higher in ADP. That 24% target share is what I like about him because the ball's flowing. He's going to get 5+ targets a game. And he had like 7 to 8+ last year per game. And you're looking at what the Chargers do to tight ends. Not the most optimal matchup, but he scored 15.9 and 9.5 against them. It's safe. No one's really going to bench him unless they doubled up at tight end. I told you guys really not to do that strategy, so I don't expect to get those questions. And if you did, you're probably on your own there because the tight end position is very volatile. Very volatile. Very fluky. Sometimes the top 8 tight end, top 6 in that range is only a couple points more than the top 25. There'll be like 3 to 5 weeks this season where it's like that. That's the point about the tight end position. You know he's going to get targets. You know he's going to be running a lot of routes. The target share is going to be up there. Travis Kelce is going to be fine this week to start. Optimal production could be fluky for him. So I'm saying he's okay to start, but watch out for the scoring. It could go one way or the other. I know that's not the analysis you want sometimes, but it's also the analysis you need because it's true. I sound like I'm slurring because there's just water just sitting on my tongue right now. If you're wondering why that happens, it's just sitting there. It's like really early in the morning, haven't had coffee or anything. But, okay, I drank that. But you need the honesty. You need the honesty. You know football's football. You know projections are off with all these sites. Why not give you the honesty you need? That's what you need. You do not need to be lied to saying this guy's a must start, must sit, even though that's the title. That's just how it flows because that's the series. That's what it's called. But I also gave you the truth here. Like, hey, he's startable. He's very startable. Target's going to be there. Target share's going to be there. Tight end position could be fluky. This is a strange matchup. Told you how Vegas was looking at this. And they do not know how to analyze it themselves. That's why the over-under is right in the middle because it could go one way or the other. That's what that tells me when I'm looking at those numbers. Because compared to the other matchups, they're almost right smack dab in the middle. They did have a 47.5 over-under. They dropped it to 46.5 in just 48 hours. It could be a little bit lighter as we get closer to kickoff. They're saying, hey, it could go either way. I think they want to get it down to 45. That's my guess because they look at this defense. They look at the pace of play. Some of them might even be watching my channel as I'm analyzing these matchups. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, hey, there's a potential this could be a low-scoring game. But considering the firepower on both teams, like if the Chiefs defense or Chargers defense breaks down on any series once or twice, causing some big plays, with that firepower, we could get an eruption of scoring. That's just sometimes how football goes. That's sometimes how football goes. You got to analyze all of it. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments below. I want to hear about that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.